75% of a property's lifetime cost is operation and maintenance, but existing solutions seldom cater effectively to the demands of today. Enter Meliox, the Swedish software company focusing on streamlining property management as well as reducing energy and carbon footprint. All of this together enhances the capabilities and intelligence of existing properties. Please welcome Meliox to the stage. Hello, gentlemen. Matthias and Daniel, thank you so much for joining us here today.
For having us.
We're here to talk about building automation, and I did a little research because I kind of thought, well, we talk about it a lot with technology, but where did it start? And apparently it started with the first thermostat, which was just checking the temperature in the building. But now here we are today, 2023, we're using a lot of technology. So let's start. I know you're the CTO, you're the CEO. Who wants to answer the big tech questions? How is IoT enabling your smart building solutions?
Well, if you look at the development, it's a huge effect, of course. And going back, how was the building controlled earlier? Was basically through one guy, the technician, normally a guy, that had everything on the back of his hand. You know all the systems. So the hands, the ears, and the eyes was basically the sensors, and data knowledge was in his head. So it was a bit confined, you can say. And then in probably beginning 90s, I would say, the first IoT systems with digital building automation kind of arrived, and we got a really good grip of the individual building, controlling that with the data and the sensors and all of that. But now, we have a huge amount of data from not only one building, but a portfolio of building, really, through IoT, which we can do a lot with. We can, gather it, of course. You need to do that, analyze and act on it. On portfolio level, so that's a big difference, and automated as well. So it's basically like have the analogy with a car. You drive a car without any meters, and then you get a dashboard, and then you go into the self-driving mode, and maybe a fleet of cars. So I wouldn't say we are self-driving with a property portfolio, but maybe in the lane assist phase, maybe, of the autonomous car.
But you're not the first company who's ever done building automation. You're not the first one to include IoT as part of your solution and helping your solution. But you are bringing some new and powerful tools to the table. So can you tell us a little bit about how that differentiates you, how that really makes your building automation solution unique?
Yes, there's a lot of companies, of course, doing IoT, and some have been focusing on the property business. But those automation systems were quite technical, and there is a vast amount of data in buildings that can be analyzed. But the people working in the buildings, I wouldn't say plumbers, but heating technician or ventilation technician, and people that need to have the information from the systems rarely had access to those systems. And if they did, the information was presented in quite complex ways, and it was difficult for them to know how data correlated. So we tried to build a system that helps the people working in the building to know if a pump isn't working, if a filter needs to be changed, and give information for day-to-day work that helps the heating system and ventilation work as they are supposed to do.
So basically, you're helping them make sense of the data.
Yeah,
for good use.
It's a complex system, but we try to simplify it enough for a human to really grasp the information. You shall not be, have to have a degree in computer science for 5 years or master degree to understand this. This should be self-explanatory.
All right, well, that's good news for me. But about data, security is always a question when we're talking about data. So how are you keeping that data secure? How important is that to your customers? It's not medical information, but I'm going to guess there's some real value in it.
It's pivotal. And we have customers coming in that are large hospitals. And if someone get access to those systems that are not supposed to have it, it can do huge damage. So security is in all of IoT, a big issue. And we have larger security companies doing audits on our systems and penetration tests just to make sure that no data can leave our systems.
So we've been talking basically about building intelligence. So what does that mean in real terms from your perspective?
Well, besides being our tagline and, a bit of a play with words, building intelligence and, building and smart building and intelligence coming from data and being intelligent. So basically two things, I would say. Our technology should be in the building and make it a bit, I don't really like the word smart, but smart or intelligent,
Responsive, maybe.
Yeah, with a good control system, with the AI functionality, IoT platform connected and all of that. But it's also, we want to see it, as Matthias say here, as an enabler for building the intelligence of smart people as well, being the one that you get the data to information so you can understand it and do something with it. So not just the system kind of running and being intelligent, but also kind of, sounds like the guys that use our system is not intelligent. They are, of course, but make them even more, aware and knowledgeable using our. So that's a kind of, smart building, smart people, intelligence.
Right. And what about things like, you're saying, smart buildings. So what about things like AI and machine learning, which is really a hot topic within the IoT circles right now? How does that play into your solution?
Well, it's a big part nowadays. It wasn't in the beginning. As I said, we tried to make this system understandable, to give information to act upon. But when you collect a lot of data scientists want to get a hold of that. And we have a close cooperation with the Blekinge Institute of Technology and have had since the start. And the researchers, found that if they can access the data together with one of our customers, they can make the AI models to reduce energy in the buildings. And that was very interesting because the results were remarkable. It was 30% plus, energy reduction. But we soon discovered that buildings are rarely balanced in a good way. So if we do that first, which you have to do if you get the information that some buildings with the same systems and same characteristics are very different in energy consumption, then you can see, all right, I have to do something. Wow. And just doing that to balance the buildings made 15% less energy. And then, of course, the AI on top of that do the 10, 20 extra %.
So basically not every solution is going to, like your solution, it's not just plug and play. It's not, it has to be adjusted depending on the needs of the building.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my next question, which is existing buildings versus new builds. Is it a different approach? What is that different approach, if so? And what do property owners need to know, depending on what kind of building they want to automate?
It is. It's a huge difference between a new and old, and even bigger difference between old buildings. That's the kind of challenge. But the new building is pretty straightforward when it comes to open protocols, APIs, so we can easily integrate and use our software on existing hardware. But there you have a problem with the big system suppliers, which is they're not willing to let you in without charging a lot, and that kind of lock in, I would say, the property owner and kind of get him to get stuck, I would say, with one supplier. And that's, still a challenge, but not as big as, going with the existing. That is a much bigger challenge with the old buildings, I would say.
And I would imagine property owners have diverse portfolio. It's not just new builds, it's not just existing. So it's a multi-layered kind of understanding they need to have.
And the problem is that they don't know what kind of systems is in the buildings. Mm-hmm. So the first and most important step is to do an inventory. What kind of systems are out there and what versions are out there? And can we consolidate this in some way to make more efficient maintenance or prediction of what's going on out there? And if they can communicate at all. Not all can.
Okay.
And very old systems are very, very specific, and you need to re-engineer the hardware, which takes time. So it's many times more cheap to just buy new hardware and do it from the beginning.
So different options, different sort of responses to different things.
It is, and it's very complex if you have various kind of protocols and serial protocols in the buildings, and you need to connect those to get the data into the platform in a similar way for us.
Now, you mentioned sustainability earlier, and Meliox has a strong sustainability angle. It's one of your key talking points. Why is it a key talking point? What do you offer in terms of impacting sustainability efforts, and how important is it to your customers? And I know that's a lot of questions, but
well, let's try to separate them. But it is, it is a huge topic, of course, and I think we contribute in different ways. One way is, of course, the whole thing of reducing energy consumption, then decreasing carbon footprint, basically, and that's a huge one, and maybe the most tangible, I would say. So that's a good one. But also, all about the legislation around buildings and the energy efficiency, that is concerning reporting. And when we have the data, it's pretty easy to report on those topics as well. How do you follow taxonomy criteria or other criteria from the EU, for example, or how do you meet your ESG targets? So that is something. When you have the data, you can report it on it.
So I assume you can document that and help a property owner report that to make sure they're not getting fined. And as regulations become more strict, or increasingly strict over the next many years, it's going to be increasingly important to be able to document this in a real way.
Yeah, and really, we don't want this to be a system that you do one thing when we have the data. Why don't you do the reporting? So basically, we want the building or portfolio of buildings basically reporting automatically on the performance against targets, and maybe moving forward also suggesting automatically what should be done if not meeting target. But okay, that's a couple of steps ahead, but still reporting is one thing also on this topic, I would say.
And what about for property owners? I mean, obviously it's a business decision, but climate change, the sustainability has been on everybody's mind a lot lately. What other sort of wins do they get other than reporting and meeting regulations? You've mentioned a couple things like energy savings, but sort of...
Reduced energy bill is, of course, a given in this case. So it's not difficult to make the decision to go from an old building without this control to have the control. The decision has to be, which system am I going to use? Because we know that you have to do it, and you will save money. More or less, regardless what you pay, you will save money because there's a lot of money to be saved, and of course, carbon footprint, which is good. But then again, if you can predict maintenance and have an organization that works in a more efficient way than today, where it might be time-stamped, you're going to visit that building at that date, at that time, and so on. Instead, you will need to know what's going on in the building. So you can have a right person at the right place at the right time with the right tools, or exchange parts if that's needed, so you don't have to travel the extra mile to do that.
Yeah, and predictive maintenance is one of the classic IoT use cases.
And it's so easy to do.
When a tiny leak springs, it's a lot easier to fix it than if the pipe's blown up.
Absolutely. No, it's so important.
I would love to talk about this all day, and I will talk to you about it later. We're running out of time, but I would like to ask, we talk about IoT technology, obviously, a lot, and we're going to talk about it a lot today. And we talk about, where we're going. If you were in those discussions, and I hope you are at some point, what technology is missing for you? What do you need to even improve your solution even more? It's a big question.
I know all technicians want standard communication and standard protocols to get access to data. And standard protocols is also for security, that we have a good way to exchange data in a secure way. Because if we can do that and give access to this data to students at university or small businesses, they have ideas that we are nowhere near knowing what they have in their minds. So if we can give them access to the data for them to build services on that in a secure way, we are going to have a larger portfolio that helps both tenants, property owners, service management companies, and so on.
All right, I'm looking at the clock. We're a little bit over time, but briefly, what's next for you? You're not necessarily a building automation company. You're a technology company. So where's it going?
Yeah, we have a list of 1,000 things we want to do, and of course AI is coming big time even for us, both on the optimization, but prediction and suggesting actions on problems. But one area, if you lift your mind, what we think is really interesting is the indoor climate area, because it's close to the energy and the building, which is I think we spend 90% of our time indoors. So of course that the bad or good indoor climate affects what you're doing. So we're starting doing that, and we have some great partners helping us with the science of that. So we're going to probably incorporate that in our platform. So the energy and the all that stuff, but also indoor climate. That's pretty exciting stuff.
All right, Daniel, Matthias, thank you so much for joining us at IoT Talks. Please give a warm welcome to Daniel and Matthias from Meliox.